I don't like to feed into fear-based beliefs and negative beliefs, but we got to talk about certain things in terms of limitation. I understand that living in a capitalistic system or in Western society, which is covering the majority of the earth, creates certain limitations and conditions that are placed on us, whether we are a person of color or whether we are a woman or not a person of color. Let's put that out there because reverse racism. Or let's say that we're an immigrant or we are an incarcerated individual, a person who has been impacted by the criminal justice system. I mean, there are so many limitations that is placed on us from the outside world, whether we're poor, rich. I mean, these social statuses as well and roles that we play in this human form. There's no denying that these limitations exist, okay? And I think it's very naive to pretend like they don't. And I think that's what toxic positivity does. It just kind of brushes everything aside and then let's just be happy. But then everything just kind of it comes back up like in one way or another through projection, typically in our relationships, at work. I mean, you name it. Whatever you don't deal with will be dealt with or will be projected out into the world. So it's very real, the struggles that we deal with in terms of just being human. But I also want to talk about something that's just a little spin on this, because this may seem a little bit triggering, but it is up to us to match that limitation of the outside world in order to be affected by it. And I've been talking about creating an episode on complaining energy and taking responsibility. And so guess what, guys? This is the episode, because we are thoroughly responsible for our being. And sometimes we don't even realize how we are creating the havoc and the struggle that we are creating, regardless of what's going on in the external world, because everything that you're experiencing truly is a reflection of within. This does not negate people treating you like shit. This does not negate bad behavior. This does not negate horrible things happening out there. However, when we place ourselves in that point of power within ourselves, the chances of things that are just super traumatic happening definitely decrease. I'm not saying that they go away completely, but also whenever bad things do happen, you're able to take responsibility and you're able to regulate yourself in these moments of hardship that, just from my experience, they get less and less and less each time. So we got to talk about it. We got to talk about these limitations, the hardship, how to take responsibility, and also how complaining energy also creates the lack of responsibility. We'll talk about all of it because we have to. We have to understand how we are truly limitless, hence the name of this podcast, right? Welcome to another episode on the You Are Limitless podcast. I'm your host, Madam Chiko, coming to you from the holistic wellness space as a transformational life coach. And I thank you so much for joining me here on YALL. And as you can see, we have gone video format. Now, there are episodes that are recorded in the queue that are still audio only. But you know what? I decided that we're just going to pick it up from here because I really want to be able to connect on so many different levels. So I thank you for joining me. And if you're just now tuning in, I'm so glad to have you here with me on the show, on my journey, and having me a part of your journey. You are loved unconditionally and you're supported unconditionally here. So just know that this is a safe and beautiful space. And this is my way of bringing psychology, metaphysical concepts, quantum physics, philosophy as well, universal law, as well as my own story of extreme limitations due to abuse, drug abuse, and being a justice impacted individual into the light so that we can learn to let go of what doesn't serve us and start to incorporate more of what's part of our truth. So I'm always excited about getting into our vortex, raising our vibration, and discovering more of that juicy truth. So, guys, we have a great episode. Again, these episodes are impromptu. I don't have a script. I don't have a script these days. I just kind of just talk and talk, and whatever comes through just comes through. But they're always this need to just share and all these burning desires that come up. I'm like, wow, this has really helped me. It has helped my clients in my coaching program, and it's helping people around me. So I'm more than happy to share it with you guys, because I'm all about everybody like getting rid of the weird limiting stories that we've been conditioned and also telling ourselves on repeat for eons, so that we can believe in our own power. This isn't some weird rah-rah motivation, but actually this is us understanding reality and how it works and how it's a reflection truly of our internal state of being. We didn't come here to struggle in a sense of this dense reality being so limiting and so egoically ran in a negative way, as in people using the ego negatively for suppression, for limitations. And yes, this is where I talk about how like there are limitations that are placed upon us. Okay, there are. But I think in order for it to match, in order for us to match that frequency of any limitations, particularly we're going to talk about negative limitations, because there are such things as positive limitations, right? An example I've used before is I'm grateful for the line in the center of a road that's telling me which side to drive on, because I don't want to drive into incoming traffic. Positive limitation, okay? But we're talking about the negative limitations, and in order for it to be of any effect towards you, let's say you have a shitty boss, and that boss just is always in a bad mood, always giving you way more than you bargained for in terms of your job description. But you're willing to do that because you want to put food on the table for your kids or yourself, or you want to keep up with the lifestyle that you have grown accustomed to. Just an example. In order for you to be affected by their negativity, to some degree, there has to be something within you that is matching that, which would create that complaining energy, by the way. So we're going to break this up into little subcategories. Okay, so bear with me as I think of these subcategories. But first, we're going to talk about like the beliefs and what the limitations do in response to your beliefs and the conditionings of the mind, because the reality is everything comes from within. Okay, you've heard this before, like as above, so below, as within, so without. So what you are seeing, like everything's like a projection screen. Think of like a screen projecting the image of your beliefs onto this screen called reality. All right. I had a belief that I wanted this poster of the phases of the moon in the background. So I projected that there. Boom. It's right there. So then we're going to talk about the idea of like the negative ego and how it feeds into this, and how we can attract based on where we're at all these scenarios that create that complaining energy. So we're going to talk about the complaining energy. We're going to talk about how it keeps us in that weird vibration. And then from there, we're going to talk about responsibility, because when you break the word up, okay, break it up. And I love breaking words up. I never said this before, but I love breaking words up. It's so much fun. And that's just the nerd of me yet. Like, anyways, but when you break the word up, responsible, or wait, I don't know which side you're looking at. Reading from left to right, responsible. The ability to respond. That's really what that means. But when you are in that complaining energy, it's really hard to respond in a positive way. Respond in a way that's going to get us to move. An example from my life in terms of like limitations, because yes, there are limitations. I've grown up and felt I've been discriminated against for being a female, for being Black, for being justice impacted, meaning that I've spent time in jail, and I felt that discrimination from the outer world. And whenever I was in that state of feeling like a victim, and we can throw in the victim mentality, because complaining energy to me is very strongly correlated to feeling like a victim. But because I felt disempowered based on these limitations, oh, well, I have to work extra hard because I'm this, or I have to prove myself because I'm not worthy. All of these things, all these negative beliefs, because somewhere within myself, I believed in my lack of self-worth. I believe in the negative narratives that I was telling myself, because that's how I grew up. I grew up feeling like I wasn't worthy enough. I wasn't validated. And as a result, I went to the extreme external ways of coping with myself through the drug addiction. And that was just its own spiral of confirmation bias, essentially. Well, you're not worthy, so you might as well do drugs. Or you're not worthy, so why go get that job? You're not worthy, so watch your business crash. I mean, and then those confirmation biases will prove that equation. And, you know, there are really, really amazing things or videos on YouTube in terms of the subconscious brain, rewiring subconscious brain. That's like one of my, if I wasn't in law school, honestly, I would be, and I say this all the time, but I would probably be in the field of neurology, because it's so fascinating to understand the inner workings of our brains. And I won't go into details here because, one, I'm not a neurologist, but, you know, part of me like, let's talk about all these neocortexes and what side does what. But for the most part, when we have our programming like tailored to the idea of limitations, oh, well, it's because I'm this, or it's because I'm that. Well, then you're going to find people, situations, places, things that will confirm that. And then you'll be like, oh, yeah, well, it's because I'm Black, or it's because I did this in the past and this is all that I am, or whatever it is that we're telling ourselves that is just so disempowering. And when we are in that state of the limitations, the reality will show that every time. You know, science is starting to catch up to how this is a really, this is a mental world, essentially. And you know, we'll probably dive into the Hermetic principles one day. There are 7 of them, but the first one, it talks about how like our world is created in our mind, essentially. It absolutely is. So let's say that, you know, we've been feeding ourselves these negative narratives for such a long time. I call them negative narratives, negative mantras, and these mantras are just so disempowering. Well, I mean, this will in turn reflect on the outside world. Now you're operating at this frequency, a lower vibrational frequency. Now, when you're operating on that lower vibrational frequency, it doesn't mean that the other frequencies don't exist. Okay, just like tuning a radio to a station or turning the channel to, like on a TV, to a particular channel, that doesn't mean that the other channels and radio stations don't exist. However, depending on that low frequency that you are at, or high, but let's talk about the low, you are now susceptible to experiencing anything that frequency has to offer. Meaning, this is how law of attraction works, where you are attracting these situations that are less than fortunate, that are situations that you don't prefer. And while we can use these situations as a place of power to evolve, to grow, like, why am I attracting this? Sometimes when we're in that lower frequency, it's hard to do the self-reflection, the self-inquiry of, why the hell did I attract this? So that's why it's really important in terms of the self-reflection and catching ourselves when we are at that frequency of just complaining, because complaining also gives off that energy of victim. When you're complaining, you're not feeling empowered to do anything about it. Okay, for the most part, I think that there is such thing as, I wouldn't even call it complaining, but let's say, you know, anger, like healthy anger, where there's an injustice being done. That to me is not complaining, right? I mean, I'm in the restorative justice field. So, you know, we can learn better, more humane ways of dealing with lower frequency behaviors or projections in people so that they can do that less. But that to me is more of like, I see an injustice, I don't like it, we're going to talk about it, we're going to do something about it, and then we're going to let it go, right? We're going to surrender. We'll talk about surrender in another episode. We have so much to talk about. So y'all stick around really quick, before we even continue. If you are enjoying this so far, and you want to support my channel, support the podcast, please like, share, subscribe, because this helps get the word out so that we have less people hurting people. And this gives us a better chance of creating more of a harmonious environment. The more people we have in this space of holistic wellness and love, like true unconditional love, I mean, the better chance we have of helping our neighbors out, helping people evolve, helping people see that they are powerful, helping people see that they can attract all it is that is of their highest good. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, turn your notifications on, share this. Absolutely. Because you're helping me out as well, get the word out. And, this is my passion. This is what I love to do on top of being a law school student. I mean, I just love this journey that I am on, and also having you guys a part of my journey. Now, let's say it doesn't resonate with you, okay? You have no idea how much you could help another person if it resonates with them, because I'm coming from a place of unconditional love and support. There is no judgment here, which, now that I think about it, we got to talk about the judgment part here in a little bit. So yes, share, subscribe, love. Okay, let's get back to it. So complaining energy also brings up judgment. Okay. Now, when you are in a place of judgment, okay, that is its own state of negativity. You can't feel love and judgment at the same time. Try it out. Okay. It doesn't work. It doesn't. Because to be in a state of judgment is to invalidate what it is that you're experiencing or another person just because you don't agree. This is why whenever someone comes to me with differing beliefs than me, I don't care, because it is all part of all of that is. Okay, this is how I can have friends that are religious, or have friends that are non-religious, or have spiritual friends, or whatever beliefs that they believe in. It doesn't matter whether I agree or not. There are some I don't agree with, but I understand from a higher perspective, it's part of all that is. So judgment typically is done from a place of disempowerment and a lack of self-worth. Every time, in my opinion, in that you're judging out there for what's going on, you're also judging within for what's going on, literally, because what you do out there is what you do within. Never take offense to how people are treating you, by the way. And I've experienced this already in school where, I can just sense when someone is like, ugh, look at her. And I'm like, okay, it means nothing to me. It means nothing to me because I remain in my sovereign being no matter what. And everybody can get to that place. Everyone. That doesn't mean I don't experience challenge or sometimes feeling so overwhelmed that I have to recalibrate. But the fact is we can do it. We can recalibrate, right? And, I have all kinds of tricks and tips for that. Nevertheless, complaining energy is its own state. Judgment, all of that. So what you are resonating on, you will experience what that vibration has to offer. Again, doesn't negate bad things happening or people mistreating you, but just understand that they are also operating on that lower frequency. Okay, for example, with a particular person who I noticed is just being judgmental towards me, I can tell that she's operating on a different frequency that's not the frequency I'm operating on. That's why it doesn't affect me, but I can recognize other frequencies. And it's up to me to match that. So let's say that for some reason I felt like I didn't belong, or maybe I said something that was just a little bit off and I want to fit in. Then now I have reduced myself to the level of the judgment that she is literally placing on me. Okay. Also what she's placing on herself, my opinion. That's where we match that limitations. That's where we match that negative energy. See what I'm talking about? It's beautiful to be able to connect the dots, right? And, like I said, the first hermetic principle, which we'll eventually talk through all of them. There's so many cool episodes that I have coming out here in the near future. But that's what I was saying. It's just really, really powerful whenever you understand that you are the creator of your reality. There is no way that you are not. It doesn't make sense for you to not be. You are part of the oneness, of the divine, of creation, of God, whatever you want to call it. Everything that is within here, we are all containers within all that is. So to think of yourself as unworthy or invalid or wrong or anything that is disempowering or negative or places you in that victim mentality / complaining energy. Honestly, the universe is so loving, so unconditionally supportive that it will support you in that belief. So we can choose to be supported in beliefs that are empowering, beliefs that are a reflection of our true value, of our true worth every time. So the other point that I was making in terms of taking responsibility, full circle. When we take responsibility for ourselves, we're stepping out of the idea of complaining and that energy, because when you're responding rather than reacting, you're responding by being proactive in your own sovereign nature. Okay. Understanding that you have the power to control enough of yourself in order to affect change. Okay. To raise your vibration, to get out of a situation that is less than perfect. When you are able to respond, just know that responsibility and victimhood does not go together. Okay. We're accepting fully the isness of a situation, of ourselves, of how we show up. There's no judgment, by the way, but we're accepting ourselves fully for where we find ourselves. Okay. So if you don't like where you find yourself, we're taking responsibility in order to see what can we do in this moment to change. Okay. Let's say that we can't change the outer surrounding right away. Okay. What can we do to regulate ourselves in order to cope with the situation, in order to regulate our nervous system? Because that in and of itself, action and responsibility doesn't have to be some big thing that you do. It doesn't have to be something dramatic. It doesn't have to be like this big move or cutting off people right away. Although if you do need to cut off people, do it. But responsibility could simply be waking up, okay? Telling yourself a different story, not complaining, okay? Not projecting, taking ownership. When I started taking ownership of the fact that like my drug addiction had created so much havoc in my life, and yeah, I can sit there and blame it on a drug. I could blame it on the system, and I used to. We can blame it on all these things, but at the very end, that was disempowering. It didn't feel like I could do anything about it. It felt bigger than me. When I started to take responsibility, being more responsible, I decided I don't have to do this. I started going on retreats, plant medicine retreats. I went back to college, got my degree in law school. But first I started to learn how to just sit and be. And that's something I hadn't learned how to do. I didn't know how to do. It was uncomfortable being by myself. It was uncomfortable just sitting in silence and nothingness. It was uncomfortable learning more about myself because then it brought up a bunch of triggers. This is what's really cool whenever you can do this in the safe space of friends, a coach, therapist, teachers, shamans, gurus, what have you. Ones that come from love, by the way, because I think everyone wants a title of I'm this and I'm that, forgetting the I am first, but nevertheless, you can also sit with yourself. And there's a bunch of resources out here on YouTube, everywhere. Just be careful where you're getting your sources, for sure, because there's a lot of resources, probably ego-based or just not really conducive to growth in the long run. So just be aware, tap into your intuition, and really feel into what feels good. So responsibility allows you to do this when you are in that state of like, I am sovereign. This is not my lot in life. This negative shit that I'm experiencing is not all that there is to experience. While I created it, I can also recreate something different. Okay, I could create differently. The universe will support you. It's wild to me how like we unconsciously believe that negativity will just happen. Our brains are so wired to be in a hyper vigilant state, always looking out for danger, always looking out for negativity. And it's wild to me how we think that we're going to be supported in negativity. When it comes to positivity, we have to have faith that it'll work out or hope that it'll work out, which to me is the same thing as I don't really trust that good things can happen. Let's say I do trust that good things can happen. I don't trust that it's going to last. And so we're supported in that. So let's start to change the narrative of what we want to be supported in. Let's take that responsibility and trust fully in our divinity and trust fully that we are capable of changing the narrative of the story. Like, it's really hard sometimes for people to believe just from my story alone. My story is a good example, but it's not everything, okay? It's just another freaking story of the many stories of alchemy, essentially. Like, you are your own story. Put yourself on a pedestal. Don't put anyone else on a pedestal. Just put that out there. But, like, it's hard for some people to believe that, well, that was you back then. I'm like, yes, so much trauma I grew up with. Absolutely. You want to talk about attachment styles? Hella dysregulated. Okay. What's the attachment style? There's 4 of them. And I don't know, maybe we can talk about attachment styles if that's something that you're interested in. But there's 4 of them. And of course, I was the disorganized one. Grew up with so much trauma, generational trauma. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And yet here we are. Okay. Continuing to heal, continuing to evolve, improve in a different equation. I am nothing like the family to which I had grown up in. Okay? And that's something that I really want people to understand, that you can break the continuity of your past stories, the continuity of how you grew up. Well, I grew up this way, so this is why I'm like that. Everybody knows someone who says this, or maybe you have said this before. I've said this before. But that in and of itself is just negating responsibility. And that's not what we want to do. We really want to take responsibility for ourselves. It might feel painful at first, but when you understand that you create your reality, so create creatively, my goodness, there's just so much power in that. And this is why I'm so glad to share this concept with you guys on taking responsibility. It's only you. There's nothing else out there. It is all a reflection of your internal state. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to share my ideas on the idea of responsibility, complaining energy, limitations, and how to transmute it. Because we absolutely can. Again, this is not some weird toxic positivity or rah-rah motivation. Like, this is just how reality works. Okay? Allow it to work for you. Otherwise, it's going to continue doing exactly what you are programmed to do. I'm always excited about getting into our vortex and raising our vibration. And just know that I love you guys so much. And thank you always for being a part of this journey with me. Like, I just love all the support and the feedback and the opinions, even differing opinions. I love it all because, this tells me that this new earth is rising and people are interested in learning how to elevate themselves, how to grow. And this is not some weird, egotistical, narcissistic thing to want to elevate yourself. But in turn, how you treat yourself is how you will treat other people. So if you're treating yourself with love, that's exactly how you're going to treat other people. One last thing, I do have some space in my one-on-one coaching program, You Are Limitless. If you want to dive more into some of these ideas and your limiting beliefs and how to transmute that. So if you want to work with me one-on-one, just know that I am more than happy to get you on a call, learn more about your journey, where you come from, where it is that you want to go, and how we can get you there. So all my links are in the show notes. You can DM me at Instagram at Madam Chiko. You could also just sign up for my newsletter as well. All of my links are in the show notes. Reach out, email me, what have you, because like I said, the more or less people we have hurting people, the better chance we have of creating our harmonious society. So thank you guys so much. Again, this is Chiko. Okay, I don't have to be all extra, or maybe I can. Who cares? And I will be seeing you guys next week on the You Are Limitless podcast. Take care, and I love you guys.